And you couldn't see who literally had get off.
When I work with
You're pretty much
property,
out.
and they start telling
So
me
every
things about how they do things there, I'd be like, oh, the other to the next person. Nobody did that for me.
So these were largely.
You know what I mean? So you kind of just do what you can that day to try to get that working.
They would kill anything. It's something like that. So we would name. So one of the females. Her name. I know. But it was so. We did see other animals here. And then we come over and like they said,
And I thought to myself, I said, well, why don't we just throw a house out, even if it's that this, he's like, no, it's going to be deep steps. They don't get that when it rains. They get whatever she's taking. What about a mower?
No, it shouldn't take an hour to start.
No, we already did all the prep.
Yeah. Right, we're about to get started here, Killer Bee Nation.
Testing. It's working.
I don't know that that's considered forced cabin restrictions.
It's a little after 1 o'clock Arizona time here at the Desert Museum in Rodeo, actually New Mexico. We're in New Mexico. We are in New Mexico. But it's the same time in New Mexico and Arizona right now. Anyway, we're right on the border of Arizona and New Mexico by the Chiricahua Mountains.
Hello, welcome. Can everybody hear me? All right, welcome. Well, welcome you guys. My name is Reed Booth. I'm Killer Bee Guy. I've been down in the desert Southwest here for a long time, and we're based out of Bisbee, and I got my crew here with us. And just for everybody's info, we're live streaming on YouTube and TikTok, and we're capturing and whatnot, so it will be on. You guys can watch it again, basically, if you have any unanswered questions. I see a few familiar faces in the audience, and of course, a bunch of new ones. So, welcome you guys. Appreciate you coming out for today. We're going to talk about something that unfortunately is going to affect everyone if it already hasn't, because they're here to stay, and they aren't going anywhere. And of course, that's killer bees. Now, we're going to cover a bunch of bases here today. We're going to do a little bit of history, even some biology, current events, and Q&A. All right? If you guys have questions, ask. I mean, this is how we're going to learn about these things and about what not to do, which is anything with them, to be honest with you. So we're just going to go ahead and get right into it, and I'm going to welcome all of our Killer Bee Nation out on YouTube and TikTok. We're live in the hive, guys. Literally, we're in Rodeo, New Mexico. So here we go, guys. So we got some pertinent stuff here. A lot of this is really current that has happened as far as attacks go.
Death investigation in Scottsdale after a worker was attacked and killed by a swarm of bees.
Police say it happened at a retirement community near Scottsdale and Pinnacle Peak Roads earlier this morning. 12 News journalist Chase Golightly joins us there live. And Chase, have you been told maybe how many times this worker was stung?
Troy, I actually just got off the phone with Scottsdale Fire Department. They gave me some more details of exactly what happened here. They said 3 workers were outside this retirement community about to get on the roof. One of them was actually in this boat lift or a cherry picker approaching the roof when the fire department told me they started getting swarmed and attacked by bees. The 2 workers on the ground then brought that worker back down to the ground level. At that point, the bees followed them. All 3 of those workers started getting stung by the bees. When firefighters arrived, they said that swarm was still attacking. They had to use a mixture of water and foam to get the bees off them. It was at that point where all those workers were taken to the hospital. And when I asked just how many times they were stung, they said for at least one of the workers, it was about 10 to 12. But for the other 2, it was too many to count. And when I spoke with the Valley doctor, he said from his experience, in order for someone to die from a bee attack like this, they would have to be stung either hundreds or up to 1,000 times.
On top of the roof at the V at Silverstone Independent Living Facility, Scottsdale police say 3 workers were attacked by a swarm of bees and had to be rushed to the hospital. 2 of those workers are now in stable condition, but one of them died from the attack.
I assume that they were just minding their own business and just kind of got a little too close.
Dr. Frank Lavecchio is an emergency physician and medical toxicologist at Valley Wise Hospital. He's seen countless bee attacks in his career, suspecting the ones that swarm the workers are Africanized honeybees, also known as killer bees.
It's very hard to kind of protect yourself. Once you get nailed by one, all the other guys kind of come over.
These attacks are relatively common. Dr. Lavecchio says the venom from these stings can cause serious problems.
Kidney failure, it can cause liver failure, it can cause you to bleed. So any place you have a blood vessel can kind of cause it to open up. It can cause you not to clot. In some places it can cause you to clot too much.
For someone to die from a swarm attack,
The deaths from these, where they get massive amounts of stingers, when they get hundreds of them, usually it's from this multi-system organ failure.
and if the person was allergic to the venom and also got stung hundreds of times,
You'd be dead pretty quickly if you were truly allergic.
the Scottsdale Police Department and County Medical Examiner are investigating this death. I briefly spoke with the facility's director about the attack, but she told me she has no comment at this time.
Dr. Lavecchio tells me if you ever find yourself in a situation getting swarmed by bees, he says the best thing to do is just run away as fast as possible. Try to get inside a car or get indoors to limit how many stings you receive. And also, if you feel any illness or anything like that, call 911 immediately. Of course, we'll be sure to keep you updated as we learn more about this ongoing situation. For now, we're live in Scottsdale. Chase Golightly, 12 News.
Yeah, you hate to hear this. And Chase, it seems like when we get the most serious bee attacks, it's when somebody gets into a hive unexpectedly, like it's somewhere where you're working, or you pull open a barbecue grill, or some kind of a watering can or something, and they're all in there.
Right, and Dr. Lavecchio was telling me even a little source of water, like checking your water meter or something like that, can also harbor a lot of these killer bees. And as soon as you get too close, and like you said, it might be unsuspecting, they're going to swarm you. And as soon as one stings you, the whole hive is going to come after you as well. So it's just a very sad situation, and again, it can happen in an instant. And again, you may have no idea how close you are getting to that hive.
Right. Chase, thank you.
Yeah, that was last summer in Scottsdale. Now, that was the one that was reported. It happens all the time. In Latin America, they actually kill people every single day because they've been down there the longest. So we're gonna go into a whole bunch of stuff here. What the heck are they? What are Africanized honeybees? They're actually a crossbreed. We're gonna go into the history and spread, some behavioral traits, the impact on humans and agriculture, huge, of course, and management and control measures, which leave that to us, please. So they are of the order Hymenoptera, which actually means hooked or membranous wings, married wings. All bees function as pollinators, all right? Honeybees are not. They all function as pollinators. And humans have a relationship, quote unquote, with honeybees for a long time. Not in the Americas, but in Asia, Europe, and Africa, because that's where honeybees are native to. We're going to go into that a lot more here during this. And so, the Egyptians started, taming them down like people have done with cows or horses or anything else. And for 4,500 years that we know of, all right? And it took a long time to, quote unquote, domesticate them. They did that so that they could go a long time without food. That's why they store the honey. They're ultimate preppers, ultimate survivalists. Resistance to disease, make a lot of honey. Well, that's where the Africanized comes in, why they were created. They're man-made. We'll talk more about that. Reduced aggressiveness, as we know, our beloved European honeybees used to be pretty darn nice. Not swarm as often. That's all out the window now. Not build as big a hive. Well, the Africanized build bigger. And we used to be able to use smoke on these things. Yeah, it doesn't work anymore. We'll talk a lot more about that. So what the heck are they? They were created in Brazil in 1957 by Dr. Warwick Kerr at the request of the Brazilian government. Why? Make more honey. All right, so the South African honeybee was known to be an excellent producer of honey and very disease resistant. So they thought, let's breed them with the European honeybees, which are sickly and jungle conditions, don't make a lot of honey, but are really nice. And let's crossbreed them and get something that makes a lot of honey. Well, they got Frankenbee, is what they got. They had no idea what the heck they were going to get. So the African honeybee, like I was saying, not the Africanized, the African honeybee, better honey producers, disease resistant, tolerating jungle conditions, tolerating any conditions actually, better defenders of the hive, don't we know about that? And then European bees, nice. But you got to read them bedtime stories every night. They're very sickly and kind of a pain in the butt. So they crossbred them, and Brazil became a big honey producer, but at what cost, right? What expense? And so as of 2019, they went from 0 on world production to 8th, but again, at what cost? So how they escaped? Okay, escape. They were let out by a guy with good intentions, as we all know. The highway to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, at the entrance to the hive, we put a screen there that prevents bees from swarming by keeping the queen from going out. Whereas worker bees can go in and still do their work, come and go. But they have to break through the screen. So this guy thought, he saw the screen on the entrance to the hives and thought he was going to help a lot by pulling those off and making it easier for the worker bees to get through. Yeah, then they swarmed, and only, get this, 26 queens. That's it. 26 queens escaped in Brazil in 1957. And from that, we have all this mayhem. It's really just like science fiction. You're going to hear me say that a lot. So they were released. They spread out at about 300 miles a year in every direction, south and west from Brazil. Not very far, of course. North, a long way. They came into Texas in 91, Arizona in 93, all right? And they came from the south into Arizona in 1993, which is why we call them bee-legals. Thank you. I hope you're all weak. Try the honey-coated veal, Okay, anyway, so by 1998, so when they first came in, I was keeping bees up at the tunnel in Bisbee as a young buck, at about 20 hives. And the Department of Ag got a hold of everybody who had anything to do with bees and said, send us samples. We don't know what's going on. You can't tell by looking. They look exactly the same. They sent us little vials. Send samples. So we did. Swarms, hives, whatever we ran into. For 5 years. In 1998, they called up everyone and said, stop sending them. We're throwing them away. It's over. It's done. They're all Africanized. Way back then. So it's over and has been for a long time. Now the only thing that we really monitor is behavior, because they change all the time. Way back, all the way to 2018, they killed a man in Manchester, New Hampshire. They'd already gotten that far back then. Like I said, sci-fi. So if you guys could please stare at these two pictures and tell me the difference. What differentiates a killer bee from a normal European bee? And if you look close enough, you'll see nothing. They look the same. You cannot tell by visual observation. That's a real fooler. A couple of reasons for that. Yes, the South African honeybee was a pure strain. European honeybees have been in the Americas since the 1600s, and all feral hives are mutts. They're all crossbred from European, different types of European, and who knows what else, honeybees that were brought here. So you got Germans and Italians and Russians, and they're all mutts. So you cannot tell by looking. It's a real fooler for beekeepers, because they, people will say, well, they don't look like Africanized honeybees. You can't tell. You don't know that. You can't tell by, it's genetic is the difference. So there are 3 ways that honeybees are dealt with. And the one that we deal with mostly is, of course, the feral hives. Feral hive is a hive living under your shed, or in an old tire in the backyard, or around here in the oak tree, or in any cottonwood tree. That's a feral hive, unmanaged by people. And then you've got the commercially kept honeybees, the big boys. Right? They haul bees around for pollination. They know what they're doing. All right? They are literally livestock producers. The USDA classifies honeybees as livestock because they're actually invasive to the Americas, and the only thing that honeybees are good for in the Americas are big agriculture and monocropping. Shock. It was to me when I found out all this stuff. Then we have the backyard beekeepers. And herein lies the problem, because unfortunately, backyard beekeepers think they know everything. And I was there. I'm totally guilty, completely guilty. It's a passion, there's no doubt about it. And a misguided one, but a passion. I call it Winnie the Pooh glasses. Okay, when you start keeping bees, you get a pair, and they are installed permanently, whether you like it or not. You get Winnie the Pooh glasses, all right? So that's the problem is, and the reason that they're invasive is if you could keep your bees in your backyard, then they would be non-native and not invasive. But you can't. They need up to a 3-mile radius to forage and compete with native pollinators, which we're going to go into that bunch. So this is so fascinating because when I said they're invasive, yeah, they are. Hosh, who works with me for about 5 years now, has found letters written by colonists in the 1600s back to Europe saying, send my bees, there aren't any here. Native Americans hated them so much they called them white man's flies, and that was the nice ones. So, of course, covered wagons and all, they brought them over. All right, there were no honeybees in the state of Arizona before 1872, ever. They made it in California first because of the gold rush. Fascinating stuff. And of course, wherever they were taken, they swarmed, which we'll go into that. That's nature's way of propagating the area with bees, and took over, literally, and are still doing it. So, all species of stinging honeybees, all right, alive today are invasive to the Americas. There are stingless honeybees in Central America. They don't produce a lot of honey, and they're not related at all to these guys, to the European or Africanized honeybee. Not related at all. Totally different critter. So there are stingless honeybees, and that's why we say stinging honeybees are invasive. So we can differentiate between those two. So how the heck did everybody survive without honeybees? Native pollinators, native bees. Now, there are a lot of them here in the desert southwest region, where the Chihuahuan Desert meets the Sonora Desert here. We're very blessed in that we have a wide variety of flora and fauna, as you guys know. That's part of the reason we're here. So we have about 1,200 different types of native bees here. That includes bumblebees and leafcutters and masons and digger bees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They are in trouble now, in large part due to Africanized honeybees, because of a lot of things we'll go into, competition and just sheer aggression, actually. Our native bees are mostly solitary and non-aggressive. They don't care about us, and much better at pollinating the native plants. They have a relationship with them called buzz pollination. Fascinating thing that we'll talk to. Non-aggressive. All of North America has about 4,000 different species of native bees, not honeybees. So there are around, like I said, 1,200 species of bees. All of them, even from little tiny bees you'll see out hiking on flowers, and you think they're little flies or something. No, they're bees, and they all pollinate. They all have a relationship with those flowers they're pollinating. The region around Tucson, Arizona is so fascinating. Our diversity here has the largest, more kinds of bees than anywhere, with the possible exception of some deserts in Israel. Go figure. It's fascinating. All right, and once again, no honeybees in the state of Arizona before 1872. Carpenter bees, we all know what those guys are. The big black jobs that hover and look at you and go, hi, what's your name? They're absolutely nice. We love them, right? They're non-aggressive. Cedar flies are actually bees. We've got a whole bunch of different ones. You know, guys know all these. Digger, masons, leaf cutters, sweat bees, bumbles. There are no more bumblebees in Tucson because of Africanized honeybees that wiped them out. And it's a total shame. So, America's native bees. Now, I'm going to let Hosh come up, and because he was in Central America recently, and talk about some native bees. Hosh, you want to come up and take over for a minute? He just went down, was it a month ago or 2 months ago? Something like that. And he went down to Central America and documented, and I want to tell you about that.
Yeah, here's a little video I made. I found 4 species down there. So this is fascinating. America's native honeybees, I think there's over 300 species of native honeybees, but they all bite, they don't sting, and instead of building in opposing hexagonal structures like we all know honeybees do, they build in orbs. It's fascinating stuff. Take a look at this.
Melipona are stingless honeybees native to the neotropics from Mexico down through the Amazon basin. They nest in cavities like hollow trees and defend themselves with biting and sticky plant resins instead of functional sting. These bees are highly social pollinators, crucial for many rainforest trees, shrubs, and crops. Their colonies store honey in wax pots, producing smaller volumes than European honeybees, but with high antimicrobial and antioxidant activity, making it valuable in traditional medicine. Many stingless bee species, including some Melipona, have very restricted ranges and are threatened by deforestation, pesticides, and climate change. In several regions, local assessments list multiple stingless bee species as endangered or even locally extinct, highlighting their vulnerability. Peru has taken a pioneering step by formally recognizing native stingless bees as a species of national interest and in some municipalities as beings with legal rights. These ordinances affirm their right to exist, maintain healthy populations, and restore their habitats, linking bee protection to indigenous bioculture heritage. Protecting Melipona and other stingless bees is not just about honey, it is about safeguarding the pollination networks that support tropical forests and human communities.
Pretty cool, huh? So these pollination networks, right? We're talking about, one way to talk about it is they call it the pollination cycle. Apis variety honeybees, because they're not native, they interrupt that cycle in a really, really big way. In the Canary Islands, they introduced honeybees. Researchers introduced honeybees in the Canary Islands. There were none there. They introduced hives, and within a day, they recognized that they had fouled up the pollination cycle. I hope they took them away, I'm not sure. So, superficially speaking, honeybees get a lot of love. It's unwarranted. Really, we've got to be very mindful about this. This is a species that was brought here originally for wax and honey, later about pollination, but the pollination is limited. The functional pollination is really limited to agricultural interests, not ecosystems. And what's good for agriculture is not necessarily good for native biodiversity, heterogeneity, right? These pockets, it's very dynamic. Anyway, let's proceed. And you let me know where we're going. Okay. So what we say is, in terms of ecosystems, European honeybees are a destructive invasive species. We just have to get real honest about this. Whereas Africanized killer bees, deadly invasive species. So, European honeybees, they outcompete native bees for food and resources. There was a study that was just done out in San Diego County, and they showed that in desert scrub areas, much like what we have here, where these honeybees move in, whether they're Africanized or European, where they move in, very quickly they comprise 98% of the bee biomass. In a single day, they will scrub 80% of pollen, loose pollen, available pollen, out of an ecosystem. The number of native bees that can be reared on the amount of resources, that's pollen and nectar, that Apis mellifera or Apis mellifera scutellata hybrid pull out of an ecosystem in the course of a month can rear 33,000 native bees. The researchers determined in this San Diego study that if the honeybees weren't there, there would be 50 times more native bees. This is the reason that we've got a pretty serious problem. Yes, there's habitat loss due to overdevelopment. Yes, there's pesticide issues. But I think number one, it's honeybees. There's not enough to go around. There's not enough resources to go around. And honeybees, they're hoarding these resources in these hives. Now, when we see hives of 100,000 bees, and we're pulling these loaves of honey, these combs out of there, they're loaded with pollen, loaded with honey, loaded with nectar. So, they dominate mineral resources. They're spreading invasive plant species. I'll give you a really solid example of this. Most of you probably know that the Sulphur Springs Valley, 150 years ago, there were no mesquite trees out there. It was all grass. We all know this, right? Which is really good. That grass functions as a big sponge. It catches the water. It cools the entire valley. That brings in more rain. The honeybees and the mesquite are like this. They ride on each other. So you've got two invasive species in symbiosis coming in and taking over. So, spread invasive plant species. And, devastating native pollinators. Now, the Africanized honeybees do all of these bad things, and they'll kill you. So that's when they start to get your attention, right? When it's actually an immediate threat to people, pets, and livestock. Oh, this is fascinating. Watch this video.
They're weird, fuzzy, and in a lot of trouble. These insects are actually all bees, wild ones. And they're debatably more important than the honey-making kinds. People are really worried about bees.
We take the plight of the honeybee for granted at our own peril.
But what most people don't know, honeybee numbers are increasing worldwide. Not just that, but the way humans use honeybees makes them a problem. Putting a honeybee hive in your backyard doesn't help. Because we're saving the wrong bees. involved in the pollination of 90% of the world's flowering plants. And when you think of pollinators, the honeybee probably comes to mind. That's because honeybees and humans have an ancient relationship. Bees have been managed for thousands of years.
There's a lot of evidence that it's played an important role also in the ancient cultures in Egypt and in Greece. And so beekeeping has always been very widespread.
Axel is the chair of the Invertebrate Conservation Committee at the IUCN. Honeybees are native to Asia, Europe, and Africa, but nowadays are everywhere except Antarctica. Apis mellifera is the most common honeybee and the best studied, although there are another 10 known species. They're general pollinators, meaning they will pollinate most plants. And although honeybees are at risk from pests and disease, the number of colonies worldwide is actually growing. According to the FAO, managed hives have increased worldwide by 83% since 1961.
Because they are always managed by beekeepers and also receive veterinary treatment and so on, there's no risk that they will become extinct.
But honeybees aren't the only bees.
The general public confounds bees with the honeybee.
This is Isabel, a pollination ecology researcher specializing in urban environments.
It would be the same situation if, for example, you were talking about birds and people think that when you talk about birds, you talk about chicken.
There are around 20,000 different species of wild bees, and they are the most important wild pollinators. They're mostly solitary, and unlike honeybees, are suited to specific plants, which makes them much better at pollinating. A hectare of apples, for example, would require tens of thousands of honeybees to pollinate, but only hundreds of this wild bee, because Osmia cornuta is particularly good at apple pollination.
Each flowering plant is strongly connected to a pollinator that fits accordingly to the lock and key principle.
An entomologist by training, Sabrina is a project manager at the Research Institute of Organic Agriculture.
This perfect fit between flower and its selected pollinator is the product of an ongoing co-evolution for centuries that is still operating.
Like the squash bees native to Central and South America. They're perfectly suited to squash plants. They're early risers, and squash flowers are only open early in the morning, while the honeybees are still asleep. Don't like squash? How about tomatoes, potatoes, or eggplant? These crops also need wild pollinators, loud ones like bumblebees to be precise. Their flowers require a vibrating buzz to release their pollen, something a bumblebee perfectly provides. Honeybees just don't have that skill. But wild bees are in serious decline. And this doesn't only affect them and their ecosystems, but our food security as well. Worldwide, wild bee diversity has been decreasing each year since the 1990s. Pesticides, intensive agriculture, and especially habitat loss are main drivers. A recent study found that we may have already lost a quarter of wild bee species, but assessment is hard due to the lack of global data. Various regional estimates suggest over 40% of wild bee and butterfly species are threatened. Farmers are already noticing a difference.
When they walked along a field, everything was full of pollinators, and nowadays it's more like everything is calmed down and nobody knows where they are.
This loss of diversity can cause knock-on effects on whole ecosystems. Less pollinator diversity means fewer wild plants. This can hurt animals that use them for food or shelter. And it's also bad for the future of our food.
The yield of cultivated plants is higher when they are visited by a variety of pollinators compared to when they are visited by only honeybees.
Remember Osmia cornuta, the apple specialist?
Most of the pollination of apple trees is performed by several species of wild bees. So if you don't get these wild bees, you get a crop of apples that will be reduced.
US crops are already producing less due to wild pollinator decline. And globally, we're planting more and more of the crops that require animal pollination, like fruits, vegetables, and oilseeds. The increase in honeybees hasn't kept up. This means pollinator dependence has increased around 70% since 1961. And combined with the decline in wild pollinators, means an emergency for the global food supply. This is especially true in countries with many large monocultures that destroy wild pollinator habitats, like China and the United States. Not only that, the way we use honeybees actually makes them a part of the problem. According to the American Beekeeping Federation, 2/3 of the 2.7 million honeybee colonies in the US are used for pollination. Most go to the almond fields in California, where 80% of the world's almonds come from. Then bees rotate around the country to pollinate other crops. Nowhere else in the world uses honeybees for pollination like the US, but the trend is growing in Europe too, as wild pollinators disappear. Unfortunately, it's not so good for the honeybees. They can be exposed to pesticides from the crops or catch diseases from the other colonies. And these honeybees are also a threat to wild ones.
Within a honeybee hive, you have tens of thousands of individuals that need a lot of food. They will eat most of the floral resources, and there will not be enough left for the other pollinating species.
If you have many bees, then they will probably outcompete this native species very fast.
Honeybees can also spread disease to wild bees. An infected bee can leave some virus on a flower to be picked up by the next wild bee that visits. It's not the honeybee's fault, but save the bees definitely does not mean adding more into the environment.
There have been a lot of people that thought that they could only save the bees when having their own beehive in the backyard, and that's the wrong way to conserve pollinators.
So what's the right way? Industrial agriculture is the biggest threat to all bees. It uses harmful chemicals and relies on huge fields of one crop. Ideally, we change our whole food system. But on a personal level, supporting small-scale sustainable farmers, if viable, also supports diverse habitats for wild bees. Even more can be done with the backyard, like leaving native plants alone or planting new ones. Open, sunny ground or dead logs also make great breeding spots for wild bees. But most of all, they need more attention. We need honeybees but aren't in danger of losing them. With wild bees, it's another story.
Did you? So, pretty heavy stuff, right? The presence of all feral bees in the Americas represents an environmental degradation because we're looking at a loss in biodiversity. Currently, nearly 4 million kept commercial and hobby bees in North America, and that comes out to 200 billion kept honeybees. Now, those are the kept bees. We don't know how many feral Africanized honeybee hives are in the state of Arizona, but I heard an estimate once, it was what, 4 million hives just in Arizona, okay? So yeah, big agriculture relies on commercial beekeeping for increased crop yields. Conservatively, we're looking at a 7% yield increase. And there's also this piece of information, this meme, if you will, that goes around that 1/3 of all your food, or every third bite of food that you take comes from honeybees. I mean, if 1/3 of your food is blueberries, right, or almonds, these are fluff crops. This is not essential nutrition. Grain is all wind pollinated. So the honeybees have been kind of overhyped. There's a lot of big money in it, a lot of lobbying, a lot of all kinds of people who benefit financially from propping this thing up. So we discourage hobby beekeeping and the quartering of feral honeybee colonies. All the hives in Arizona are Africanized, all the feral hives. Guaranteed. And so there is a law on the books, ARS 36-601, states that if you have a feral honeybee hive on your property, down here, you have to have it removed. It's considered a public nuisance. Now, we regard this as a threat, not a nuisance. I mean, a nuisance is a neighbor's dog is barking, right? But these things are deadly. All right. Killer behavioral traits. Okay, so let's know the enemy. We got 3 kinds of bees we're going to find in a hive: worker, drone, queen. And most of your bees are going to be workers. They're the ones with stingers. They're prepubescent female bees. They have not been fed the royal jelly that will turn them into a queen bee. Okay? Drones. Africanized honeybee hives tend to have more drones. Now, this is one of the reasons why, if you're keeping bees in a bee box in your backyard, when your queen goes on her mating flight, she is going to encounter Africanized drones, because the field, the surrounding ecosystem, is 100% saturated. So it's guaranteed when she goes on that flight, she's going to run into Africanized drones. And we find many more Africanized drones in these hives. We find more, it's just a lot of drones. We did a cleanup at a job this morning on our way over here. I couldn't believe the number of drones I was seeing. A lot of drones. And then, of course, the queen, right? And the queen is the egg-laying machine. Researchers aren't sure entirely. They used to think she was a decision maker. Now they think maybe the whole hive makes decisions and she's just there to lay eggs. I don't know, we'll see. Science is evolving. So comb in the hive. How do they make all that wax? Beeswax is produced by worker bees ingesting honey. 7 parts honey to 1 part wax. When the wax comes out, they excrete it out of their abdomens. You can see over here, and it's translucent white. As they use it over the years, we see the comb gets darker and darker. 5 years of use, the comb is almost black. With age, the workers are going to produce less wax, and the wax is initially, like I said, crystal clear and gets dark. All right, so there it is. Now again, this is this opposing. So this one over here, you can see that dark comb. That's old. This one's much newer. Opposing hexagonal design, right? Now each of these cells is a canning jar for bees. This one, they filled these jars with honey, and then they put caps on it to preserve it. That's the stuff we like to eat, right? Pollen. Now remember what I said about them skimming all that pollen out of the ecosystem. If pollen's in the hive, where isn't it? It's not in the pantries of native bees. It's not in the nurseries of native bees for rearing native bees. But they wet pack this stuff in here, and I mean, it's not floating around out there. They've got it. They're billionaires. Okay, comb in the hive, brood comb. This is the babies. And these are worker cells here. The bees that are going to hatch out of here are worker bees. And these raised cells here, those are drones. Those are males. And then, of course, down here, you see the queen cells, big things. Swarming. All right, so the big myth, you see a ball of bees like this, oh, they're resting. Leave them alone and they'll move on. 50% of these balls that we knock down, they're building wax. Right there on the tree, they're going to build a hive there. Additionally, it was a ball of bees like this that killed an old Bisbee local years ago. How many of you heard the story about Dan Oldfield? No? Okay, so long time Bisbee guy, ball of bees in a tree, nudges it with his backhoe, they come down and sting him to death. So these, you see a ball like this out here, number one, they're Africanized. Number two, they will attack you. They're dangerous. We come up on these things and they blow up in our faces. So what is swarming? Swarming is nature's way of propagating an area with bees. The old queen will gather 7,000 to 10,000 bees, fly off and start a new colony someplace else. The new virgin queen will emerge and then kill all the other virgin queens. It's like Game of Thrones. And then she goes on her mating flight, and who's she going to run into up in the sky? Very romantic, a bunch of Africanized drones. She's going to emit a pheromone to attract them, and then it establishes that drone congregation area up in the clouds. It's lovely. The drones will follow the pheromone to mate with the new queen, and she'll meet with 1 to 3 dozen drones. There they are. It's a beautiful thing. Mating occurs in flight, and the process is not pretty for the males. He does his thing and then leaves his endophallus inside of her and drops to the ground dead. Yeah, it's grisly. Then she'll come back to the hive and she'll lay 1,500 eggs a day for up to 5 years. So they build out fast. If your queen is European and she mates with Africanized drones, the hive is now Africanized. And we've seen this happen, and we actually have a video here towards the end of the presentation. It happened in Visby. So a woman, 3rd generation beekeeper, she goes out to check her hive one day, and boom, it blows up, okay? Well, this had happened, and she was unaware. You can't tell by looking. It happened in a day. They'll come in, they'll kill all the bees in the hive, sting the pupae to death through the caps, and then move in, and because they look the same, you don't know that it's happened. That's the other way that you lose your hive, aside from, generative. And Africanized hives can swarm more than 10 times a year. That's a lot of new hives being kicked out. So they are colonizers, they are occupiers, they gentrify ecosystems. Check this out.
That's a tree.
It's a small one here.
There's a swarm here, right? Hi, Jim. Right here. They're here.
This is one swarm. This is a rarity. I'd be very surprised if any of y'all see anything like this, but I mean, come on.
Can we get a big garbage bag?
What's this down in Moscow?
And I'm just gonna start scooping them into, look at this, solid beef. That is solid beef from up there down, feel it. Dude, put your hand under there.
Oh,
Put your hand under there, no, not my hand.
Wow, okay, that's my hand, and this feels like I'm holding a small bag of sugar, kind of.
What?
Small bag of sugar?
Look at that. I mean, this is insane. Oh, they're all coagulating.
Amazing. How would you say you filled like how many trash bags? How many, like 4 or 5? 5? 50-gallon bags? Took it away? Yeah. We don't, I mean, are there multiple queens in this? We don't know. It's crazy. This is crazy, right? There's no science to explain this. They'll build anywhere.
All right,
We're in a pond orchard out in.
do you see that? It's like right kind of in center of the cameras. See the slightest bit of yellow, because there's like layers of cone.
Wow. There's no sneaking up on them? Here we go, guys.
I think we got a class 5 here. Smoke doesn't work. We don't smoke Africanized bees. It doesn't work.
Here we go. There they are. Yep, those honey. We're gonna have to go for the
Holy.
See that? Completely full of bees. Look at the size of that thing, you guys. And then more hives here. There's another one behind me. It's been treated. And then there's one further down the line. So
Wow, we're all the way to the top.
how are you?
We can do it now. We used to do that, it's just not effective when you drop the next couple of weeks. Any situations we're in.
Valve boxes. Every year we go to Douglas multiple times a year on search and destroy missions. All along those alleys and stuff in Douglas, they're all valve boxes back there. They're all infested with these things. The workers come through, they've got to get into those valve boxes for whatever reason and run into one of those, chase them off. It's funny when we do these search and destroys, you'll see we'll come up on the valve box and the lid's way over here and there's, everybody's just, people are running. It's a dangerous thing, so you want to be careful. You all probably have these things in some shape or form on your property, some void on your property that can house these things. We don't know why they attack. Color of clothing, carbon dioxide coming out of the mouth, vibrations, weed whacker, sawzall, bulldozer, all this stuff. Bad sense of humor, fragrance. And the thing is that the fragrance, it could be you wear the same cologne, but for some reason on a Tuesday, combined with your orange shirt, that pisses them off. And again, linked in with maybe it's a little hot that day. We never know. It's very chaotic. So the queen bee can sting. Drones cannot. They have an endophallus. They don't have a stinger. Workers can and will sting you. The honeybee workers are the only Hymenoptera with a barbed stinger. What this means is that when they sting mammals or birds, that stinger sticks in, and then they disembowel themselves. But you can see how it works here. It's a pump, and it drives that venom in. So once you get stung, you've got to get that stinger out. Use a credit card or your fingernail to get that stinger out because you don't want to get a full dose. Additionally, if you don't get that stinger out, that wound can get infected. So, if you get stung, you gotta scrape it out. Also, when you get stung, that venom goes in subcutaneously, okay? It goes into your system. And that means that you are exuding attack pheromone, depending on your metabolism, up to a week. So if you get stung, to whom much has been given, more will be given. You get stung once, more is coming. So we know people, they'll get stung up, they'll get to a hive, get stung up, and then they can't leave their house until that hive is gone because every time they step outside, they're getting bombarded. They want to finish the job. It's this attack pheromone. Another thing to note is when you kill a bee, the smell of a smashed bee is also the attack pheromone. So you smash a bee, that's why they say don't swat at them. If you smash a bee and you kill it, then that little spot where you've done that is screaming, attack, attack, attack. So, good to know about all this, especially here in Arizona. So, foraging and scout bees. These are workers outside the hive. You're going to encounter these, they're going to be on your flowers. They're going to be in your juniper trees, right? There's bees all over the place. At this point, you don't think you really have to worry about that. They're busy, they're focused, they're not thinking about attacking. It's when they think their hive is being threatened. But again, threatened could be you wearing the wrong cologne on a Thursday, Africanized hives, they'll have foragers and scouts operating in a much larger area. So European honeybees forage in a 2-mile radius, Africanized bees forage in a 3-mile radius. And water. Every hive uses about a gallon of water a day. So if you've got a pool, bird feeder, all these kinds of things, right? They're after that water. And I'm sure you've all encountered that. Someplace where there's a hose or a spigot, the bees are all over it. They need water. Water, nectar, pollen, and propolis, tree sap. Robber bees. So after we do a job and knock out a hive, we get two different kinds of bees. Remnants, those are bees that have been out foraging in the field while we were doing our job. They come back to the castle and it's gone. Those are remnant bees. Now without the queen and the rest of the hive, they don't last very long. They go into existential dread and die within, short order. But robber bees are from nearby hives. Now both of these bees can be aggressive. Like I said, we just stopped back at a job that we did a couple days ago on our way in here, and the remnants came out to attack me. They were mean. So you gotta pay attention. Basically, wherever these things are, unless you see them foraging on flowers, they're really unsafe. They're gonna stay around an area where the hive previously was. This is remnants for days, couple of weeks. The remnants can be aggressive, like I said. And then they're surviving for longer and longer periods of time, which is why we wanted to stop over at this hive on our way over here, because we're seeing these things hang on for longer and longer. We just did a job. There was a beekeeper, or a guy who was keeping bees out in Elfrida. It was just a couple weeks ago. And his hives, what did he say? Was it 6 weeks they lasted?
Yeah.
Or 6 months? I can't remember which. Yeah, 6 weeks. He installs this European honeybee hives 10 feet away from his house. 6 weeks later, he can't get near the hives. Well now, based on our discussion today, you all know what happened. The queen either bred with, or those hives got taken over. Regardless, it's not safe anymore. We took we knocked out two of the boxes were infested. We knocked one of the boxes there, brought the other one back, put it in a deep freeze for a couple days, pulled it out. It's sitting in a plastic bag for 3 weeks. No ingress, egress, not able to leave to go to the bathroom. We pull this out of this black bag, and they're still active, alive, raring to go. Incredibly tenacious animals. Okay, impact. It's bigger than they're just not safe, right? They can chase you up to 10 miles in a vehicle. We've had that happen. Typically, on average, you're looking at a quarter of a mile to a half mile. I personally have seen them chase us for 4 miles. Reed's had them chase the truck for 10. It means you get out, hey, how are we doing? Let's get out of the suits or whatever. Oh, the bees are still here. You go to the next gate, you open it up, try to go out. You're moving through sections on the ranch, right? Every time you get out to try to take your suit off or to open a gate to move on, you're getting stung up. So they'll kill a dog, a horse. I can't tell you how many dogs I've seen them kill. It's a horrible way to go too, but dogs. But yeah, goats, livestock. In central Pennsylvania, just a couple weeks ago, which I don't even understand because PA's under, snow. Just a few weeks ago, 3 cattle, a bull, 2,600-pound bull, and 2 1,200-pound dairy cows killed by one hive. That's 6,000 pounds of mammal brought down. Yeah. More guard bees, they'll overpower European hives. They fight with each other. Remember we talked about swarming? One hive gives birth to another hive. They're enemies now. There's no loyalty. They're very, very tribal. It's kind of cool. And we see them fight with each other. We'll get into jobs where all of a sudden there's bees rolling around on the ground wrestling with each other, stinging each other. They're fighting because the attack pheromone was released and the hive over there is like, hey, what's going on? And they come over and they want to fight and they want to steal their honey. And so it's pretty awesome. Hive populations that dwarf those of European hives. What we say is this: average European hive, 50,000 bees. Average Africanized hive, 100,000. And you can watch our videos at Killer Bee Guy. You can see how big some of these hives are. I mean, it's astronomical. Now, there's one that I was telling you about that we just stopped by on our way over to see, you know, how the remnant's doing. 6 feet of comb under a double wide. February, just a couple days ago, all eggs. No honey. All brood comb. I don't know what they're doing. It doesn't make any sense. They should have honey stores for the winter, not breeding. Now, I know it's been warm and unseasonably warm like that, but still, this is the kind of thing. We did a job 4 years ago at an evidence shed behind the sheriff's office in Sierra Vista. October, 10 feet of comb under the floor. Cut the floor up, from wall to wall, 10 feet of comb, 100% eggs. No honey. In October. If you know anything about bees, that's crazy. But this is the kind of stuff that we see. And yeah, 1,000 bees per second, I mean, they come out fast. Surveying your surroundings, so you got to pay attention. If you're in Arizona, you have to know what to look for. Everywhere is where to inspect. And what you're looking for is ingress, egress. We say dog houses, bird houses, under sheds. They're opportunists. They don't need a big void to build. They'll build a little tiny space and then just send out swarms, pop, 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 pop from there. Or they'll build out in a huge cavity. They don't care. Under sheds, bird boards, eaves, irrigation boxes, barbecues, smokers. So you really have to watch what you're doing when you go out to get into what you're getting into. Are there honeybees coming and going? And where you see them coming and going, that's the airport. It's not the city. That's the loading dock. You get behind that, and depending on how big that void is, back behind that ingress, egress, you can have 100,000 bees easily. And they will all come out. They will empty the hive. Unlike European honeybees, they'll send out a dozen to kind of chase you off. They mean business. They're going to come out and kill you. We have seen them empty out a hive. We'll go in, all the bees are in the air, the hive is completely empty. Not a single bee in there. So look for multiple hives. Like I was saying earlier, if one gets riled up, they all get riled up. And then you're dealing with 200,000 or 300,000 bees. If you got a pile of tires in your backyard, you could have 3 different hives in there. We did do you know where Curry Farms is? Out in Sunsites area. Okay, big pepper farm out there. We went out, they had a boneyard, you know, where they've got a bunch of scraps, old tractors, all this stuff. We went out there one time, 7 hives in a square acre area. And like I said, one gets one riled up, they all get riled up. You know, there were 1 million bees in the air, literally 1 million bees in the air during that removal. Proximity to water sources. Y'all have a little bit of water up here. You're going to have more of these things because you've got the water to sustain them. And why are they always around my pool? We discussed this. No rhyme or reason to where they'll live. You know, when I first started doing this work, I thought that I was going to gain some profound insight into the mechanisms of nature, and I would be able to see the future by whatever the bees are doing. I'm telling you, it's chaos. It's just chaos. There's no pattern. I think the pattern is reproduce, 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 reproduce. That's it. It's not even about feeding themselves, because like I'm saying, we're getting 10 feet of comb, all eggs. So they don't even care about surviving. It's propagate the species, propagate the species. Invasive. So when you find a feral hive or a swarm, don't try to take care of it yourself. It's so dangerous. One of the big reasons is they'll have multiple doors where you see them coming and going, okay? Well, you plug that up and they start coming out the back. So move all people and animals away from the area, get inside. Warn neighbors, other members of the public and media and area to move indoors. You gotta get inside, never jump in water. You all know that, right? Don't jump in water. 95% of the people that jump in water die by drowning or by being stung to death. You're under the water, you come up for air, the bees sting you and fly down your throat. Like, when I say sting, I mean like they're coming in. Okay, when they find these stinging victims, I had a nurse stop by the store a little while ago. She's from Phoenix area, and she said the bodies of these people that die from these bees, you know, she's bringing them in, autopsy, this and that. They're pulling bees out of people's stomachs, they're pulling them out of their lungs, they're pulling them out of their deep ear canals. They get inside and they sting when they're in there. But anyway, jump in water, good luck, not good. Don't jump in water, cover your head for cover. You gotta get as far away. If you're out on a trail here and it starts, you know, the bees start knocking off of you, go. Don't run in a zigzag. Don't just get whatever trail, you go back the way you came or go forward, whatever you do, you've got to go, and go fast. And if you're on a horse, get off the horse. Because how well you know the horse, it doesn't matter, that they're going to throw you. And then your broken leg next to the hive, and the bees are all coming out and doing their duty. Horses, they just killed a couple months ago 3 horses in Comanche, Texas. Show horses, as I would call them. Rodeo horses, yeah. Yeah, stung up dead. Horses are very susceptible because their hearts are so sensitive, right? So they will have a heart attack. They'll get stung over and over, and then their hearts, you know, they die of fright. So, yeah, very susceptible. We just did a job a couple days ago on a trail. Guy rode by on horseback, hive right at eye level, and started knocking on him. And fortunately, he got out of there in time. But that's very dangerous to be on a horse next to a killer beehive. Call a pest management professional with proper experience and state licensing. That would be us. All right. But they're just honeybees. So they're not Africanized. These bees aren't Africanized. They're just honeybees. They're just normal bees. We hear this all the time.
A while, guys. We don't know exactly how deep it is or anything. We know that it's long. It's going on quite a ways here. God, they're not going to like me at all in a minute. Merry Christmas. Wow, it'll be noted. This is how this is there. That first chair that was leaned up against this was sitting upright. And the cow is out here. And so we're doing this not only to protect me, but the animals. They tipped the cows tipped that chair over here, and then she heard cows running off as like a stampede. So we know what happened, right?
This is 100,000. Easy.
Oh my God. Old dog.
In a hot tub. Nasty too.
Oh, yeah, put her up. Oh, here.
This is what I was telling you guys about.
Oh yeah, it's getting louder.
This is vicious. Wow, that's really something.
No, this is plastic.
They're pissed.
Yeah, this is plastic, Mr. Bennett.
Meaning this is as bad as we see them get.
Yeah.
I think they got through one section there.
Did you get stung? Ah, the suit right there.
Yeah.
Well, whenever the suit gets too close to the skin.
Yeah.
So people always ask me, what happens to me personally when I get stung? Well, it improves my vocabulary.
This one.
Wow.
That wellhead. That was Sunny Zona, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, not too far from here. Oh, yeah, Turkey Creek on that side, yeah. So feral hive or swarm discovered, you gotta let everybody know. Run in a straight line. Don't do zigzag. Don't jump in the water, I've covered all this. Even if you have bees on your body, even if you're getting stung, you're better off being inside a car with 100 than being outside with 100,000. And it's hard to think this way while you're getting attacked. One of the things that this nurse was sharing with me is hikers up in the mountains. She's seen a lot of people, they'll just jump off the mountain. They're getting attacked by bees, they'll jump off the mountain. You know, and then they'll actually die by impact rather than the bees. So your head doesn't work right when you're under attack, is my point. So you gotta have a plan ahead of time. Okay, case against managed hives. Brewery Gulch, summer 2022. This was this beekeeper, 3rd generation, keeping bees. She goes out to check the hive, make an adjustment. I think something had happened with the box was tilted. She went to right it. She did not know that her hive had been infiltrated.
I'm gonna back this up a little bit, if you can get some spray adhesive on when I stop. Harry! Yeah, nice, huh? Were these yours? Oh, all right. Where's everybody? Okay, Killer Bee Nation, we got a huge attack right now. Up the Gulch in Bisbee, someone had a beehive up here they were keeping. Please don't keep bees in Arizona. Where are we going, Harry, further? Yeah, it's up behind. What's going on up there?
Same hive up there?
All right, pretty pissed.
Just, I went to, because it's listed in the rain, I haven't written in my house, I'm just,
Well, they're all Africanized in the state, as you well know now. All right, is anybody hospitalized yet?
No, we have one person getting ready to go.
All right, well, we're on the way back there. There's a police behind us.
Perfect.
Let's go get, we're gonna kill this hive, you know that. Okay, let's go get a Fendona. This Fendona, we gotta put him down. Hey, down. All right, Killer Bee Nation, we've got a serious incident here. So you just have the one hive? Yeah.
So we're gonna block out from the other.
Perfect. You might even need to go further.
Yeah, I'm gonna there.
Get as close as you can, so when we get her out, we can throw her in.
Yeah.
Have they got her on a drip yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. We'll go up with you in a minute. If of course anybody peeks their heads out, tell them to get the hell inside. Hush, we're gonna create, there's a patient in this house here, and we need to create a wall of spray adhesive so they can get them into the ambulance.
Okay.
We're basically gonna create a wall, spray adhesive, so they can get them from this house into this ambulance as soon as he gets close enough. Let me know when you're in position. All right, I'm gonna give you a minute, I'm gonna communicate. Hi, honey, how are you? Yeah, not so hot. All right, we're gonna line this up. Now, I'm gonna make a wall of safety, all right, with the spray adhesive so that we can get you out to the ambulance, okay?
This is
The only way to go
750
through
yards.
here. This is spray adhesive, it's non-toxic, all right? We basically drop them like rocks.
Okay.
And so we're gonna make a wall, as soon as he gets back around close enough and the back door closed, and you guys can get her out, all right? We gotta make sure the dog is out of the way. When they bring her out, all right, you and I are gonna walk ahead and to the side. And we're gonna be doing this. We're gonna knock him down, knock him down, knock him down. He's already taken a lot of stings. So let's get started with that right now. Knock him down, knock him down. You're still gonna have a few out here. You're still gonna have a few out here. Cover her head. All right, let's go. We're just gonna knock him down. We're gonna walk a foot. All right, there you go. I'm gonna get a little bit behind you and to your side. There you go. Close, stay closer, stay closer. There you go. You're doing good. You're doing great. Oh, you're doing great. You are. You're doing awesome. Just stay. Get down on the side, on the street level. Push and knock him down near her. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go on the side. Look at that. You get the VIP. You get the VIP treatment. There you go, hon. Hurry, 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 hurry. Hurry, hurry, hurry. All right, gentlemen. Okay. Holy we're gonna go up and kill some bees. All right. All right, Killer Bee Nation, we're going to put the kibosh on the side. How far up is it? Let's go ahead and go up. And we're going to make quick work of this, put them down. All right.
Straight through. It's not pesticides or
We're going to be working on a law actually where it's illegal to keep bees in any city limits for this reason. And did you know these bees are in all the lower 28 states now? So when I tell people that we rescue firefighters in these states, this is what I mean. I'm going to pop this off, see what I did, I pop the top off, create my pyrotechnic. Okay, now they're in escape mode. Okay, this is working really well, because now they are escaping in let's get the hell out of here mode, not, yeah. And I'm hoping that we can continue that down below. Damn repeat of, in 1998, we had the worst stinging incident in the world to this day. Do you have a hive tool? All right, Killer Bee Nation. Absolutely ridiculous. So we're killing everything. We're trying to knock them down as much as we can. This is working really well. Thank you very much. Well, I was lucky for you, we weren't in Wilcox. That'll break loose. I'm not going to do that a long time. That's all right. All right, they're in death mode. Thank you. And we got to make sure the good stones here. All right, here, hive tools there. All right, here we go. You have a beautiful yard, by the way. I mean, absolutely wonderful. All right. Okay, Hosh, we will be wanting more spray adhesive, of course. Now, this works so well that I don't even have any on me right now. All right. The problem is where the stinging incidents happened, and I say plural, there, the pheromone is there. And so although that hive is officially dead, there's still a lot of angry white blood cells flying around. All right, well, they got her to the hospital apparently. All right, so this is good. They're actually tapering off. You know what, Hosh, I'm gonna get enough spray adhesive, knock down these guys. Oh my God. All right, hive is dead. Yeah, the threat is about at the 85% containment level right now. Okay. How's it looking down there as far as activity?
So basically from your truck back, there's not really nothing.
That's awesome, then we can continue to knock them out the way they go stuff.
That's good. Mr. Booth, how long do you think?
Before you can open it up?
Yeah, you can open it up.
Sundown.
Till sundown?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is not safe for anybody to walk for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not the most that I'm worried about, it's that one for that person that's allergic.
Yeah.
And then they take your house and car and everything else. And in the state of Arizona, they don't, the state agencies will even know that. And I'm not too fond of that stuff. Totally unnecessary. Oh my God. I hope the lady lives. She gets stung more than 5 or 6 times, that's for damn sure. Kicking bees, like just honeybees. You ever heard the gal? Well, a week ago they were flying. We're gonna wrap this up. Brewery Gulch, beautiful Bisbee, Arizona. It's safe now, you can come visit. This poor woman. She was in her hive a month ago without a suit on. And they were just as nice as could be. And now she got in her suit. And thank God she put on her suit and tried to, because it was tipping over, they tried to straighten it up. And obviously all hell broke loose. And they sent at least one person to the hospital. So we're gonna wrap it up here. Oh, say goodbye. Oh my God, we have had a hell of a day of it, you guys. You can always go to buysomehoney@killerbeeguy.com and follow us, please. Look at this you have to do. Love you guys. Thanks for coming along on our adventures. There's more.
So I'd love to be able to tell you all that she learned her lesson and she's not keeping bees anymore. She's keeping bees. She's up there keeping bees. Yeah. So please don't keep bees in Arizona. Don't do it. That's not worth it, right? I'm shocked that nothing good came out of that because there were a lot of people that get stung up. One woman going to the hospital. Fortunately, she's very lucky that nobody pressed charges, but she's at it again. She loves those honeybees. right.
Wow. Excellent. Oh, just stand up here. We've got some Q&A going. Thank you, man. That was awesome. Yeah, that was great. We got any questions and whatnot, you guys? Yes.
I'm curious, do they just live, if the hive is there and it's not being disturbed or anything, will they just live in there indefinitely, or do they move out in some years?
There is something called absconding, which they'll pick up and leave for no discernible reason. When we've seen them leave babies and honey, leave it all. Rare. Africanized bees used to be a lot more known for absconding, not anymore. They will stay in a place for decades and decades.
And just a quick follow-up. When you see them all leave,
Yeah.
and you think, oh, thank God, they left, and then 3 days later they all return, is that like a new thing?
Well, one of two possibilities. Either your existing hive didn't leave, but 10% of them did. So you still got your hive, and now you got another one. Oh, joy. You know, and this is why we always tell people, if your neighbor has bees, you have bees. They don't know fences and boundaries. All right. Now, if you have a hive and they abscond and there's none in there, and then there are, then the neighbor's bees swarmed and you've got them again. So those are the one of two possibilities of that. Yeah.
So if you have something that's completely locked off and you have bees living in it, and you can hear the bees, how long can they last in there?
If they can't come and go?
If they can't, if they can't come and go.
Right.
there's
Well,
no
let's put it this way. Now these bees are in Wisconsin. Okay, they're in all the lower 48. In fact, just a little side note here, Canada just put out a list of the 10 most dangerous insects in Canada, and number 2 is killer bees. All right, so, like Hosh always says, where European bees can survive, these guys can thrive, which means that if you have them locked in a space like that, in Wisconsin, what we do is we would put bales, when we get down to 30 below and stuff, we put bales around it, you know, so they wouldn't freeze to death or whatever. And they're their own HVAC systems, actually. And so they could stay in there for months. That's what their program, that's why they store the honey. They're the ultimate survivalists, the ultimate preppers. They can stay in there for months. So when we'd warm up above freezing, we'd pull the bale of hay back, let them all go out to poop. The snow would all be brown, and then they come back, and you put the bale back, and then they're like us. They watch movies and light the wood fire. Yes?
How was the environment different before we had any bees in this country?
That is a great question, and I have no one. I look old, I ain't that old. Calm down. No, that's it. Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I have zero idea. I don't know. Invasive species are definitely not good. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to hear you, but yeah.
What kind of spray adhesive are you using on those bees?
What kind of season?
Spray adhesive.
Spray adhesive.
Oh, spray adhesive. Okay, what we use, and I came up with this idea years ago, made me feel like a genius, which really doesn't take much. But because when there's honey to be had and we spray pyrethrin around, well, we're going to throw all the honey away, right? It's poison. So I got to thinking, I don't care if they're dead or not, I just don't want them flying around. So we use a non-toxic spray adhesive, and any spray adhesive will do. This is not a DIY channel. Don't put down the Amazon catalog. You're not going to buy a bee suit. Stop it. Yeah.
What's going to happen to pollination? I know the cranberry marshes in Wisconsin pollinate with bees. What is going to happen to the pollination?
I'm horrified, actually, to think. Because when an invasive species takes over, look at the pythons in Florida. What's happening? Right? Look at the buffalo grass. Look at look at the lantern flies, stinknet, the weed. It's not good. Yes?
I've been putting out traps of sugar water in a plastic bottle that has a little, it's like the top of a plastic bottle.
Yeah.
I turn it, invert it, near my my hummingbird feeders. And that seems to catch a lot of them, but I feel bad for killing the bees.
Oh, well, here we go again. You need to take off your Winnie the Pooh glasses. I know they're installed tightly. Mine had to be surgically removed. All right? Don't feel bad about killing them. They're a deadly invasive species. Are we pro-native or pro-invasive? That's what it boils down to for us, all right? Okay, as to try and catch them and kill them. You could stand at the Empress-Still hive and kill every bee that comes out forever and not affect that hive. Because in every Africanized hive, around 2,000 bees are born every day. So it's adorable. It's just adorable, that's all. Yes?
How far do you guys range out? How far, what's your territory you go to?
Well, if you're buying dinner, we'll go to Texas.
Okay.
Better be some damn good barbecue though. Yeah. Yeah, we get, geez, we're in Bowie, we're in San Manuel, we're out in Cotton City, we're, Animus, which I nicknamed Animosity. So anyway, who has any more questions, anybody? Yes?
One more question, I'm just curious, if you have, let's say theoretically, 40 acres.
Which means she does.
And you have probably about 6 beehives on them.
How many?
6 probably. And you were able to get rid of them all.
Yeah.
Would you be able to get any pollinators back, or are you just expecting?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, don't you want to address that about how native pollinators, the timelines were not coming back after?
Sure, yeah. When we frequently will revisit places where we've done removals. Testing?
Yeah.
So when we go back, after we've knocked out a hive, all of a sudden there's hoverflies everywhere, there's mason bees. Nature abhors a vacuum. You're doing the ecosystem, you're doing this area here is very precious. The Chiricahua Mountains, right? Incredibly precious. The biodiversity that you have here. Nature will fill in the gap and you will see native pollinators. The other thing that you can do, if you absolutely must do something, and I don't recommend doing much because we tend to foul things up, but if you get rid of all those hives and then bring in carpenter bees or leafcutter bees, you can order those bees. I don't know how good that is.
That mess with nature.
Yeah, right, exactly. You know what we tell people? Don't keep bees, plant native plants. Plant native plants, plant native plants. That's the medicine. You do it, and if it's not native, don't plant it. Stay away from it. And then that's how we're going to bring it back. I'm always encouraged when we're driving around the county and we see the piles of mesquite trees where people have gone in and cut all those mesquites down and obviously created a little habitat there, and then the native grasses are there. I know that's a lot of work to do, but it always makes me really happy when I see that, because that's the kind of thing that it takes. Somebody asked earlier about what did it look like before the honeybee invasion, right? Or yes. So you got to go bioregion by bioregion, right? But what we can say for just Cochise County, no mesquites, more grass. That's how it was here. It's going to be different in other bioregions, right? But here it was the killer bees love the mesquite trees. They bloom twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year.
Lately.
Right? So they get a lot of food. Now they're not just getting nectar from those, they're also pollinating them. So one invasive species is spreading another invasive species, right? The mesquite spread the bees spread the mesquite. And also the broom sage, or the desert broom. That's another one. They love that stuff. Another example. So those species weren't here, and there were a lot of native grasses with roots going way down deep, holding on to a lot of water. It was a completely different thing. So think about it. The one place where we can really make a dent is what we're planting and what we're not planting.
Raise chihuahuas, not bees. At least you can keep them in your backyard. They're about as mean. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, anybody got any other questions before we wrap it up? Yes.
At my house, I've got yellow jacket wasps.
Yes.
But I don't really see that many bees right around the house. Is there a direct competition between those two? Or what's the relationship?
Well, I mean, are they ground dormant? Are the yellow jackets living underground?
No, they make like kind of egg breeding net.
Oh, yeah. You know, they're native and they shouldn't be aggressive. I mean, if they are, hey, if it, you know, like I tell everybody, if out here, we live out here, if it doesn't bite you, sting you, or stab you, you ain't home. Right? I mean, everything wants to kill you. So if it's not doing that, well, then they're good little guard bees. You know, you can kind of make a deal with them. People always say, oh, I've got a hive under that shed, but we have an understanding. I have a truce with them. I don't bother them. They don't bother me. Oh, good grief. Again, remove the Winnie the Pooh glasses. I have them surgically removed if you need to. Because I grew up with them. We all did. You know, remember, when you're talking about saving the bees, you know, you don't talk about, everybody goes, oh, honeybees, that's it, that's the only thing. Save the birds, only talking about chickens. Right? As far as invasive species go, it'd be like saying, I love snakes. Oh, I just love snakes. So because I love snakes, and snakes are snakes, I'm going to raise pythons and let them go in Florida because they're snakes. No, that's not the right way to go about it. Okay? But for all of you who live out here, I have got a great rattlesnake chili recipe. Okay? You guys got to write this down now, and I'll tell you what the secret is right off the bat. Add more chicken. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming to us. We appreciate you. If you need us, give us a holler. If you don't, join. Love you guys. Thanks for coming. Killer Bee Nation, YouTube, TikTok, thank you guys for joining us. This will be posted in its entirety shortly. Well, it might take days to go up on Hosh. Anyway, go to killerbeeguy.com, get some honey, do it now, do it again, do it in front of me. Okay, love you. Talk to you guys later.